listening to Scary Podcast, where real nightmares are told in the dark. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. They told me not to go back to the cabin, that people vanish in those woods, and they're never found. But I didn't believe in ghost stories, not until I heard the whisper right outside my window at 3:17 a.m. I know what you're thinking. Why would anyone go to an isolated cabin alone? But the truth is, I needed to get away. After everything that happened last year, the breakup, the job burnout, the insomnia, I was spiraling. My therapist said I needed space to breathe. So when I found the listing for an old log cabin deep in the woods of Maine, I didn't hesitate. The pictures made it look peaceful. A porch, swing, snow-covered pine trees, a small lake nearby, and the price, too cheap, way too cheap. But I ignored the red flags. I wanted to be alone. I booked it for 7 days. No neighbors, no internet, no phone service, just me. And silence. I left early in the morning and drove most of the day. The deeper I got into the woods, the stranger things felt. Around 4 p.m., the GPS went out. No signal. I started following printed directions I had jotted down from the listing. And then, right past a faded old gas station with boarded-up windows, I saw the narrow gravel road that led to the cabin. As my tires crunched the gravel and tree branches scraped against my car, I got this weird feeling, like I wasn't supposed to be there. When I arrived, the sun was setting. The cabin looked older than the pictures, more run down. The wood was grey and weather-worn, and one of the window shutters hung loose, swinging gently in the breeze, and the front door. It was open, just a crack, but enough to see inside. I stopped in the driveway, engine still running. I waited. Maybe someone else was there. Another guest, a caretaker. But there was no sign of life, just the wind and the creaking sound of the porch swing slowly swaying by itself. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I turned off the engine, grabbed my bags, and pushed open the door. Hello. I called out, "Anyone here?" No answer. Just the sound of the floorboards groaning under my feet. The cabin smelled like wood smoke and dust, and something faintly metallic. There were no signs of anyone living there. Everything was untouched. Still, I told myself maybe the wind blew the door open. But then I saw something on the floor by the fireplace. A small, leather-bound journal. It was open. The last entry was dated October 28th, 1997. It simply read, "It came back last night. Same time, same voice. It's always whispering my name." I picked up the journal carefully. The leather was old and cracked, and the pages were yellowed with age. Most of the writing was faded, but I could make out enough to feel uncomfortable. It came back last night. Same time, same voice. It's always whispering my name. I flipped back a few pages. There were other entries, all short, scattered, and panicked. Heard it again. 3:17 a.m. sharp. Can't sleep. It's scratching now. Outside the walls. Tried to leave. car wouldn't start. Battery dead. I think it doesn't want me to go. My stomach dropped. This had to be some kind of joke, right? Maybe someone left the journal to scare guests. I looked around for cameras or hidden prank equipment. Nothing. Just dust, shadows, and the ticking sound of an old clock on the wall. Still, I laughed it off, told myself it was some creative writing left behind by a bored teenager. I dropped the journal back on the fireplace mantel, tried to shake the weirdness off, and settled in. The first hour or two was peaceful, actually. I made a quick dinner, canned soup and crackers, and lit a fire in the hearth. I had no Wi-Fi, no signal, no distractions, just the crackling flames and the creaking of the old wooden walls. I should felt relaxed, but I didn't. That night I had the worst sleep of my life, not because I was uncomfortable. The bed was surprisingly decent, but because something just felt wrong. Like the air in the cabin was too heavy, like I was being watched. I woke up several times, once at 1:11 a.m. I remember the clock on the wall ticking loudly in the silence. Another time at 2:43, but it was the last time that truly shook me. 3:17 a.m. The moment I woke, I knew something had changed. The cabin felt colder, dead silent. The fire had burned down to a faint orange glow, barely lighting the room. And then I heard it. SFX, faint whispering. It was so soft, I thought. I imagined it at first like wind through the trees or leaves brushing against the wall. But it came again, closer. Come out. It wasn't coming from inside the cabin. It was coming from just outside the window. I froze, didn't move a muscle. My breath caught in my throat. Every instinct in my body screamed to hide, to run. But my limbs wouldn't listen. The whisper came again. I see you. I slowly turned my head toward the window. The curtains were drawn, but moonlight was filtering through the edges. Something moved behind the curtain, just the faintest shift, like a hand brushing across the glass. I reached for the lamp on the nightstand and switched it on. Light flooded the room. I jumped out of bed and yanked the curtain open in one motion. Nothing, just darkness, trees, the faint shimmer of the lake in the distance. But the glass had fog on it, like someone had been breathing on the other side. Backed away from the windows slowly, locked it, closed the curtain. I told myself it was an animal. Maybe a deer. Maybe I was still half asleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been standing there, just inches away, whispering through the glass. I didn't sleep again that night. I waited until morning, sitting in the corner of the room with the fireplace poker in my hand. Every noise made me jump. Every creak in the walls felt like footsteps. When the sun finally came up, I rushed outside. There were no tracks in the snow. None. Not even my own from the night before. That's when I noticed something else. A faint scratch mark on the window, like a fingernail had dragged across the glass. I packed my bags. I was done. I grabbed my keys, threw my duffel into the car, and turned the ignition. Nothing. The engine didn't even turn over. The lights were dead, battery drained, like something had killed it during the night. I got out, popped the hood, and checked the cables. Everything looked normal. No corrosion, no loose wires, just dead, like the journal said. Tried to leave. Car wouldn't start. I went back inside, trying not to panic. Told myself I'd wait for someone to pass by the road and help. Jump my battery. But a full day passed. No one came. No cars. No planes. No people. And when night fell again, I began to hear the whispering. Sooner this time. Not at 3:17. This time, it started at 2:44. The second night was worse. The whispers started at 2:44 a.m., not 3:17 like the first night. Louder this time, closer, and there were more than one voice. I couldn't make out all the words. It was like a dozen people were whispering over each other right outside the walls, saying fragments of things. Come back. It's waiting. Let us in. I was too scared to move. I just sat in the corner again, clutching the fireplace poker like it could actually help me. My phone was still useless. No bar, no GPS, no anything. Around 3:20 a.m., something new happened. The doorknob rattled. SFX, metallic click, slow door creak. It wasn't wind. It wasn't vibration. It was deliberate. Slow. I stood there, frozen, staring at the door from across the room. Then, just like that, the sound stopped. Silence. And then, scratching, long, slow scratches, like fingernails dragging down the wood. First, the front door, then the walls, then the window again. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran into the kitchen, found a flashlight, and opened every drawer until I found what I was looking for. A rusted old hunting knife. It wouldn't stop anything supernatural, but holding it made me feel less helpless. I didn't sleep that night either. When morning came, I inspected the cabin again. There were new scratches across the wood near every window and door. They looked almost human, but too long, too deep. I checked the shed out back. Inside was nothing but a rusty snow shovel, an empty gas can, and a half-burned pile of notebooks. Pulled one from the ashes and flipped through it. Water damaged, pages stuck together, but some words were still legible. One page had a hand-drawn diagram of the cabin. Underneath it, in all caps, "Do not open the trapdoor." I stared at that sentence for a long time. I didn't remember seeing any trapdoor. I went back inside and searched every inch of the floor, under the rug, under the bed, behind the wood stove. And then I found it, a faint seam in the old wooden floorboards behind the fireplace, barely noticeable. The edges had been nailed shut and painted over long ago, but the wood was dry and brittle. I pried at the edges with the tip of the knife. The nails creaked loose, one by one. After a few minutes of struggle, the panel came free. The smell hit me first. Rot, dampness, and something else. Something sour and ancient. I pointed the flashlight down into the dark. A narrow staircase, pitch black, no visible floor, no sound, just a yawning, breathless void. There were faint claw marks on the inside of the panel, like something had tried to climb out. I dropped the panel shut, shoved a heavy chair over it, and backed away. I didn't know what was down there, but I wasn't going to find out that afternoon. I hiked down the gravel path toward the main road, hoping to find help. But after about an hour of walking, I realized something was wrong. I should have reached the gas station by then, but I hadn't passed anything, not even tire tracks. It was like the woods just kept going. I turned around and tried to go back, but the trail looked different. Trees were bent, branches twisted like claws. Even the light felt wrong, too gray, too quiet, like time had slowed down. That night, the third night, the whispers came even earlier, 1:56 a.m., and this time they weren't just outside. I heard them inside the walls. I could feel them moving through the cabin, brushing against the inside of the wood, pressing under the floorboards. I ran outside, flashlight shaking in my hand, screaming for help, tease, but my voice didn't echo. It just vanished, swallowed by the dark. When I got back to the cabin, the trap door was open. The chair had been pushed aside, and in the ashes of the fireplace were bare human footprints leading across the room to my bed. I didn't sleep the third night either. I couldn't. I sat in the kitchen, knife in one hand, flashlight in the other, and just waited. I kept staring at that trap door, expecting it to creak open again. It didn't, but I knew something had come through it. Those footprints, they weren't mine. Too small, too thin, and they left no snow when I followed them outside. They just stopped in the middle of the yard. I wanted to run, just take off into the woods and never look back. But I was afraid I'd just circle back here, like the forest wouldn't let me leave. So instead, I made a decision. I was going to find out what was beneath that cabin. I waited until morning, or what passed for morning. The light never seemed to fully rise anymore. Then I opened the trapdoor. The air that rose from below was ice cold, heavy, like breathing in something that didn't want to be disturbed. I shined my flashlight down. The staircase looked even narrower now, and longer. I descended slowly, one step at a time. The wood creaked, and the smell grew stronger, like wet earth and old blood. At the bottom, there was no floor, just dirt. A low-ceilinged room, dug out like a crude bunker. The walls were packed earth. The only thing in the space was a small wooden chair in the center, facing the far wall. And on that wall were hundreds of scratches, tallies, rows and rows and rows of tallies, like someone had been counting, but they weren't scratched with a tool. They were scratched with fingers. I stepped closer. The wall shimmered somehow. My light flickered. I took one more step, and the dirt at my feet shifted. That's when I realized the ground was moving. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of tiny shapes writhing just below the surface. I backed away quickly, and then I saw it. A face, half buried in the wall. No eyes, just dark hollows. A stretched mouth, frozen mid-scream. Not a corpse, not a mask. Something caught between worlds. And then I heard it whisper, "You opened the door. Now it's your turn." I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I was out of the basement, up the stairs, slamming the trapdoor shut behind me. I dragged the fridge over it this time, but it didn't matter. That night, the fourth night, the whispers started at 11:44 p.m. and now they were coming from inside my head. She let it in. You let it in. Now it's inside. I screamed into the darkness, covered my ears, rocked back and forth. I couldn't take it anymore. I just wanted out. But the cabin wouldn't let me. The door was sealed shut. Windows wouldn't break. My flashlight drained in minutes. The power flickered out. I was trapped, alone, or at least I thought I was, until I saw the footprints again. This time, not just one pair, multiple sets, small, wet, bare. They circled my bed, stopped in front of the fireplace, led back to the trapdoor. I stayed awake until sunrise. When light finally seeped in through the shutters, I passed out from exhaustion. When I woke up, everything was different. The cabin was clean, new-looking, like nothing had happened. My phone had a signal again. My car started without issue. I drove away without looking back. But here's the part that still haunts me. 2 weeks later, I got curious. I searched online for the cabin listing again. It was gone. The rental site had no record of it. I called the agency. They said they'd never had a property in that area. I checked satellite maps. There's no cabin at those coordinates. Just woods. Endless woods. So if you're hearing this, if you're thinking of booking some off-grid little retreat to unplug, don't. Not unless you're sure it exists. And if you ever wake up at exactly 3:17 a.m. and hear someone whispering your name from outside the window, don't look, don't answer, because once you hear it, it never